see Will Johnson's first game? Everybody's been talking about it for the last couple of days. How did you kind of analyze it?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty solid game with things to improve on. I thought both him and Max, they came out of that game with good point of attacks, which is, we talk about the job of the corners, deny the ball. You're able to see his preparation get put to work, really made a lot of intelligent plays out there, just because of his study and the way he practiced. But, overall pleased with both those corners, and some things we got to clean up, though.
One of those plays was the big-time hit on Olave, and JJ was saying that was an instance where he was learning from practice and kind of had the freedom to look at the call and make a decision from there. How tough is that in the moment as a rookie in your first game to kind of recognize that? I mean, just mentally, we've heard you guys say he hasn't been preparing or practicing like a rookie, but to make that kind of adjustment in game.
Yeah, it was impressive. I would say, honestly, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. There it was. I even missed it. But that was an impressive play with his brain, no doubt, because they kind of made things look a little bit different, and he was still able to recognize, on the fly what it was getting to. So it was impressive.
How did you think he played that interception? In terms of tracking the ball, was it kind of
Pretty good, right? He got the ball. Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard. That thing's down the field against a very really fast receiver. He's got good ball skills. Like, he went up and got it. Wasn't surprised by that. He's got good ball skills.
Overall, you guys showed a lot of the things that you kind of hinted at in training camp, right? With Rapp getting more snaps, Garrett outside. How do you think that impacted the secondary overall, and kind of what you were able to do with those six guys?
It was good. I like, when you got guys that can help you win games. I like to get those guys on the field. So I thought it was a healthy rotation of a lot of good players.
The play at the end of the game where it looked like the Saints had a touchdown, the ball gets jarred loose. Who do you see jarring loose?
It was a combination of both those guys. JT did a great job of what we call playing through the triangle and going all the way through the catch and helping rake it out. And then Buddha came in with what we would call a saw-off hit, where he gave a guy a good shot and helped jar it loose. So, both those guys, all the way up until the last play, playing with their hair on fire, and not surprised.
Is that what you want, guys, just flying to the ball, like you said, playing with their hair on fire?
Yes. Correct.
How was everything operationally with Mac calling defense, and how do you think he played making a position switch?
It was smooth. I didn't, from my perspective, there was never an instance where I would actually say Mac did a better job than I did. There was a couple of times where I could have been better, and Mac had us, calm and in the right call. So he did a really good job there, and I think that's his natural position. Like, he's playing stack linebacker. He did a great job.
First time seeing this revamped pass rush on the field together, what would you kind of make of their performance?
Good and bad. We knew that Rattler had some escapability, a little bit of flight risk. So I'd have preferred some of those scrambles, specifically towards the end in that 2-minute. Rather keep him in the pocket, because those are outs, and if in a 2-minute you can get a sack, that's a drive killer. It takes a lot of time. So, if we rush with the right rush leverages on those, that would have been a much better day rushing. And then there's things that I thought were really good where we affected the quarterback. There's times where ball's getting out fast and there's not much you can do other than get your hands up. And then, there's times where I think we could rush better and, win those one-on-ones. So, that's kind of the story of every component of the defense, the coverage, the run game, the pass rush. It's things that we did good and things we got to improve on.
Both Calais and JG mentioned the tempo the Saints were playing with and trying to move along pretty good, and it might have had a little bit of an impact. Kind of how did you see that impacting your guys? Because in the end, between the points and the yards, you guys statistically had a pretty good game defense.
Yeah. Anytime you're in a tempo situation in a 2-minute, you want to try to keep your rushers fresh. I think what can hurt that is if they're staying on schedule and, completing it, and it's, you want it to be in bounds, but the more it's in bounds, the more those guys are going to have to continue to play back-to-back plays. So, yeah, you always want fresh rushers. And in a 2-minute situation, tempo can hurt that.
Was there one play at the end of the first half where you guys had 10 on the field?
Yes, that was my fault. 100% my fault. And that was a situation where what I did I couldn't do for multiple reasons. So at the moment I was very mad, but then I thought about it. I was like, that was terrible by me. Like I couldn't. I was going to sub, and then I called them back. So that's not on the players. That's not on the position coaches. That's something that I got to do better and learn from that situation. It actually came up in the third quarter as well, and I didn't do it. So I'm proud of myself for being able to rebound fast, but that's 100% on me.
That formation where you overloaded their left side of the line, it seemed to be pretty effective. Why was it able to be so effective?
You're talking about on third downs?
You had Barrett over the center, or over the guard. You had Clay over the...
Yeah. To be honest, it was okay. I think part of the reasons it was effective is because people won their rush. There's a couple of times where, we were in that front, and if a guy goes and wins, it's going to look effective. And there's a couple of times where it wasn't effective. So, that's something we're going to look at every week and we talk about with the players too of, what was good with the plan and what wasn't good with the plan. But that's just something, a tool in our arsenal on pass downs.
On a random play, but Rattler's first keeper looked like he was going to have a big game. Then Calais kind of beats his guy. What did Calais do on that play to be able to make that happen?
We call that changing the math. So TJ Paganetti is their run game coordinator. He had a really good run plan, and that was one of those plays that numbers-wise, when you draw it up on paper, it's not a good look for us. That was some of the difficulties going into week one of not knowing what to expect, and they got to one of those things that we weren't sure if they were going to do or not. And when you look at it, you're like, oh boy. And changing the math is when things aren't great on paper, do you take two, or do you beat your one-on-one so bad that it doesn't even matter that they have hats for hats? And that's what Calais did, and it saved me. So, and that's why motor and violence is so critical, right? It's those type of plays that mitigate the explosives, and we know explosives are, huge winning statistics. So that's what he did. He changed the math on that play.
Did he go backdoor, or was that kind of what he was supposed to do?
There was maybe a little bit of freestyle. It wasn't necessarily just avoiding blocks and backdooring. He was very violent at the point of attack.
JG talks about week 1 to week 2. You can make a big jump all 3 units with your side of the ball. What would you like to see? What are some of the priorities you'd like to see grow?
Takeaways. I know we had one called back, but honestly, one's not enough. You gotta take the ball away in this league to win games. So, going forward, I'd love to win that takeaway battle.
You guys had 9 passes defense, though. You're getting your hands on football.
Yes.
Is that something that could develop?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that's there's multiple reasons for that happening, and number one is you're in the right position, right? You're winning your leverage. We're taking away the quarterback's first read. He's having to go through his progressions. But then the actual finishes is something we work a lot on. It goes into our ball disruption, like how do we disrupt the football, which can lead to takeaways, right? There's a couple that were close off some of those tips and batted passes. But it goes into the technique at the point of attack of do they know how to play through the triangle like JT at the end of the game. And those guys did a good job of that.
You're pretty even killed, maybe even stoic a little on game days. So when you've got a game that is as fast-paced and exciting the way that game was ending, are you having to be a little more intentional about maybe staying even keeled in those moments, or is your heart rate kind of rising a little bit?
I don't think my heart. I don't know. I don't notice my heart rate. I'm just in the moment. The only time you ever actually think about your heart rate is probably before the game. Try to keep it down. So, yeah, I like to stay pretty even keel. Yeah, if you're prepared for the moment, all you got to do is focus on what you have to do.
So having played Carolina, obviously, late last season, what's most important this week?
Well, they have a really good O-line, and I think Chuba Hubbard gets a lot of dirty yards. He's a good running back. And so, we can't let them get going on the ground. And then, to me, Bryce Young, when he's on. I think a lot of him. Because he can make things happen with his arm, and if it's not there, he knows how to extend and make plays with his legs. He did that last week. He did that last year against us. So, and they got some new weapons for him. So, I know last week wasn't what they wanted to open with, but this is a good offense, and they're going to bring it. I know it. So, we got our hands, we got our work cut out for us.
When do you switch from looking back to looking forward at the next opponent?
That depends a little bit on the time of the year and the team, and if there's new components to the team. Like you might have a middle of the year opponent, and if the coach has been there for a while and the quarterback has been there, they have a lot of the same pieces. You can go back. We have 2-3 years broken down on every single team. But if there's new components, it's obviously if it's a new staff, you're not going too far back. But if there's a bunch of new pieces, and you got to be able to, if you are going back very far, filter what is still relevant.
What are your early impressions of Tedero McMillan?
Yeah, I think he showed that he's going to be a player. He's good. He's long. He's smooth at the top of the route, and he's going to win contested catches. So they have a good offense in place over there, and he's definitely a guy that we got to be able to take away.
When it comes to Will, I know he didn't play every snap, but probably about 60%. If he continues to make plays like he did this in week 1, the interception, the big hit, is that going to be a good challenge or problem for you to figure out ways to get this guy on the field?
Yeah, I mean, every week we're going to look at what is the best thing we should do in terms of packages and reps for each guy that helps us win the game. So, 1 week at a time, and, we'll see how this week goes.
How did you assess Darius Robinson?
Yeah, played violent. I know there's a couple plays that he wanted back, but there were some really good plays where he just disrupted the run game and the quarterback. So just like with every guy, things that he can improve on. I know he wants a couple of those plays back where maybe he could have done one thing to win the rush and, hit the quarterback. But overall, he had a really good week of practice. His motor he was flying around, and it showed up on Sunday.
Yesterday, JG was talking a lot about when Cody and Joey went out and having guys like Dortch and Vokalek kind of step in. He was talking very specifically about Dortch playing gunner there. Like, you've talked a lot about, hey, this could happen at any point and people have the roles, but to have it happen in a key moment late in the game and you got to have somebody doing that, like what's going through your head? Are you super confident, or are you like, okay, let's see how this plays out?
Yeah, well, in that specific situation, I felt good about Greg being able to go out and do what we needed him to do. He's been in that situation before. We've got some other guys who are pretty good at it, but obviously when you have an injury, you go to your whatever you feel like your next best guy. As like Greg's role on our team, it can vary week to week. There's some games he's played 50, 60 snaps. There's some times where it might be less than 10, and I'm never really going to know that until you kind of get in the second half. The hard part about that particular play was there was a sack on the play before, so it's 4th and longer down in distance. He got a double, and Keaton got doubled. So, Shaheed's a really good returner, and some of his bigger plays through his career have been in that exact same situation. Offense is backed up inside your 20, it's longer down in distance, they feel like they can double the gunners, and the ball's in play. So I felt good about Greg being able to go do that. Some of the other things, guys, sometimes it comes up where the same person that you forecasted might have to fill a role goes in, and he's taken reps, however many reps throughout the week. Sometimes it's a conversation. Hey, 3 weeks ago we did this because this might come up. It just came up. So, there were some moving parts in that game, and I was happy with the guys that stepped into those roles. They played winning football in those moments.
They were talking about on one of the broadcasts for one of the games this week about the changes with the K-ball preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Just how much of a difference and an impact can that make for your guys?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is it's going to be even, right? Because the other team is doing the same types of things. They really, It's a different process, but it's a more efficient process. Like basically, they just don't limit one of your equipment guys to 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like trying to get the ball in a state that it's conducive to the kickers. They just allow you to do that before you get to the stadium. They're still going to inspect it, say, hey, you went too far with this one, that one's out. Or, great, these are all okay. So our equipment guys do a great job with that. Time will tell. I would think that it's going to be similar. There's just going to be, when you get a finite 30-minute window, you're really working 1, 2, maybe get to that third one. And that's how they're going to go in the game. Here's K-ball 1, here's K-ball 2. You hope you don't get, kind of beyond there. But all it takes is a, kick that goes above a net or a touchdown return, or the guy makes a good play and takes the ball to the equipment guy, that ball's out. So it's more efficient, and I think there's an equitable football that goes into the game in the first quarter as it is the fourth quarter.
So when you have an opening weekend where there's a 58 and 2 59s and a 60, is that just the kickers getting that much better at these long distance kicks on a consistent basis? Does the K-ball factor into that?
It could factor in. It's hard to say. I have not made it around the league to see kind of what happened, so I don't know who kicked all of those kicks, but I know Boswell hit the 60. I remember seeing that right when we got on the bus. A guy hit a 70-yard field goal in a game. And I think once that happens, other people's minds get opened up to, okay, it's not that crazy. Our guy hits that in practice. Maybe we should, trot him out there. Sometimes those decisions get made by the down and distance as much as the field position. It's not a high percentage kick when you get out to those distances, depending on your kicker. Obviously, we've had some guys that have been pretty successful from long distance. But, if it's 4th and 1 or a 60-yard kick, you probably feel good about continuing the drive and going for it there, right? If it's 4th and 32 or 4th and goal from the 42, like, you might want to try that. So I think it is situational, and it's got to come at the right moment. But the longer kicks are usually going to come in situations where it's at the end of the half or the down and distance is pretty long.
Have you shown your guys the Chiefs field goal where they came on the last second to kick it? And will that be kind of a teaching moment, you think, for all levels of football?
No, I haven't shown our guys that yet. Our travel schedule is a little bit different this week, just as far as the meetings go. That situation is a situation we obviously cover. They did a heck of a job. It was kind of the stars aligning for them, and they probably did it intentionally. It was a ball that was inbounds complete to their hash. Balls are midfield. Some of the guys that are running on the field might weigh 330, 350, right? So there's less time when they have to go from a field position that is in the quote-unquote box as opposed to getting down to the 10, 15-yard line, as well as the guys running off. Part of the drill there, and there was somebody close, but it was legal, is getting guys off the field as much as getting guys on the field and getting set. Because the routes, you're never going to call a play that says, make sure he can get off to the sideline on the next one. You're trying to get a first down, get out of bounds, whatever. So, it's a teachable moment because there's so many eyes on that. But we've had a couple since I've been here, where we've executed in that situation, or at least attempted, or other teams have tried against us. We try and teach off of everything, and anytime you're not a part of that, it kind of goes in the file, and you show that throughout the week and show it in the spring or show it in training camp. But it was pretty impressive. I have not seen somebody get that off in 17 seconds.
On the chance you were watching last night's game live, that kick right around like 2:02.
The kickoff.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
If you were watching that live, is part of you like kind of maybe not like yelling at the screen, right? Because it's not your team, but are you like what are you seeing on a big special teams moment like that leads to a lot of discourse following the game?
When I'm watching the game, and I did happen to see that live, you're trying to put yourself in the situation. What decision would we make? What decision would I make? If the head coach said, "Here's what I want to do," how are you going to communicate, those things. I've not been in that situation. It's actually a fairly new situation. And the reason why in that situation it's different is because for years and years and years, you didn't have to tell everybody we're going to onside kick this. So your hands team is on the field. And when that situation would come up, right, it's 202, it's 204, it's 207, how far are you going to stretch the leather on that? Where before last year, you've got to make a decision with your hands team. Are you going to bring that ball out? Because the reality is you have a bunch of people out there that aren't used to blocking on kickoff return. So your field position is going to be bad if you try to return that most of the time. But if you can get a clock stoppage out of the way and you're ahead and you're protecting a lead, it might be worth it. So when the rule came out last year, you're not having to make that decision with your hands team. The negative field position part of it is not as much of a factor because you do have your regular blockers out there. So the field position shouldn't be quite as poor as it would have been in the past. But yeah, I mean, anytime I could be watching a high school game, and if something comes up, I'm going to be thinking. My brain does not turn off when it comes to situational football ever.
What did your brain say when you saw Prater go to Buffalo and get some kicks in such a short notice?
Yeah, I was really fired up for him. When he went there, it was like, this is how this is going to come down, the end of the game. Like, it was just going to happen. It just, was it going to be a 25-yarder? Was it going to be a 55-yarder? Happy for him. Yep.
The kick that Chad had blocked on Sunday, what should have happened on that point?
Without getting all the way into it, what should happen when your field goal team goes on the field is the ball should go through the uprights. It's not something new. That same player did the exact same thing a year ago, and they've tried that a couple of times. They did a good job executing, and there's things that we can learn from that. There's adjustments we can potentially make from that. But anytime something happens like that, it's going viral, and it's going league-wide. As a block team, can we do something like that? And as a protection team, how do you combat those things? So we'll make the adjustments we need to make.
He was 2 for 2 before that. It being your final kick of the game, does it become a bigger emphasis the following week, or is it just, if you get a kick blocked, you're just going to emphasize that anyway?
Yeah, the timing of when that happens. Anytime something negative happens, you got to get it corrected. End of game, beginning of game, you got to be on it for the next week.
With the K-balls, how many do you carry now with you? You said you had 3 under the previous rule. Do you still have 3, or is it?
I leave that up completely to our equipment staff. I mean, they actually send you, the league sends you, gosh, I don't remember what they said, 70 footballs sometime in the summer, and you can kind of start working on them whenever you want. If there's something you feel like, because not every football is created equal. Maybe there's the laces are off here. Maybe the nozzle's sticking out here. And there's like, for those that are in the Amazon exchanges, like you can send it back and say, we don't like these 4, and they send you 4 new ones. But you got to be ahead of those things. They kind of give you your allotment throughout the season. And but yeah, I'm not sure how many because I'm not a part of that process. Leave it up to our professional equipment guys.
Quiet start, 2 series, didn't get anything going. What got you guys going on that 3rd series?
I think that was it the big play down the sideline of Marv that, anytime you hit an explosive play, as we've talked about in here, big opportunity for points. I think certainly that got us into a little bit of a rhythm and gave us some confidence and got us going there in the first half.
Later on it was pretty late in the game, you had tried another deep shot to Marv over the middle on a post. What happened on that incompletion?
It was a unique coverage, backed up. We had a motion on it. Not sure they adjusted quite the way they wanted to, so it was a little bit of a unique angle he took on the throw. Not really sure where the backside safety was, so it's kind of this certainly wasn't exactly where we expected that ball to be caught. It's a play we'd love to make, but I'm not going to say that's a hit it every time type of opportunity.
So is it one where Marv should have broken the route more vertical because of where the second safety was?
No, I mean, if he stays vertical, he's going to run right into the safety, so I think he did what he had to do.
So the ball should have been a little bit more.
Yeah, as long as you know where the backside safety is on a route that you might not be expected to throw there.
Is one game enough to tell if the Marvin-Kyler connection has improved?
Yes and no. I'm certainly happy with the way that they played and the way they connected on a number of opportunities, but I think that's something we're going to evaluate every week and every game as we go through the year.
Marv said, I think it was on the slant where he got the first down. He said it hurt, like his shoulder hurt. Like, obviously you don't want your number one receiver to be put in a position to get injured, but so playing out of the slot, does that increase that a little bit?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, football is a violent game. Guys tend to get hurt. A lot of things that happen during the course of the game probably hurt in one way or another. But I was really confident and excited to see him commit to that to go get the first down because it was a really big moment in the game and a huge play for us.
It was Jonah Williams' first full game back since the knee injury. How would you evaluate how he did?
I thought he did well. He's getting back into the flow of things. First competitive action really since the injury. He had a couple towards the end of last year. But was pleased with the way he kind of came out of the game. I think his confidence is building and was glad to see that.
Trey Benson had that big run, busted one. What kind of dynamic does he add to this offense, being able to hit that home run ball, so to speak?
You saw it in the game. I think that's what he brings to the offense, among other things. James right there next to him. I think both those guys do things at such a high level in that room, and it doesn't happen without the guys in front of him blocking. You saw Mike Wilson had a huge block on that play on one of their best players at the second level, and those plays don't happen if guys don't do that. So it takes everybody, but was really pleased with his performance as a running back.
That was like a third of your production total as far as rushing yards. And 150 looks good, but where do you feel like you guys struggled to really establish the run consistently throughout the game?
You hit it. It's efficiency, right? When you have the big numbers, your yards per carry looks good. But, hey, if we handed the ball off 18 times and 2 of them got us, 80% of those yards, we need to be more efficient in the running game. I think that's going to be a big thing moving forward here.
There were a couple unblocked pressures. There was one on the first drive of the game where Kyler kind of rolled left. What should have happened on that play?
Not that. So it was a little bit of a movement there and kind of got our crosshairs in terms of the traffic pattern and caused an issue there. I put that on me.
And then there was one on the last drive of the game where it looked like you guys slid the line right, so then the unblocked pressure comes off the left. That's when we're watching from afar. You think, why is there not a hot route on that play? What is the thinking? I know there's more that goes into that. Why?
You talking the last offense play of the game? Yeah. They sold out. They brought 0, so there's going to be a free guy. You're hoping you can get it off before he gets home. I thought he timed it up really well and got there, second before we had an opportunity to throw the ball.
Was there a hot route on that play?
I mean, there's a hot to every pass we're going to have. Whether or not you have time to get it off depends on how well they time it up, who comes free and when, and what they look like in the back end.
One thing that Jonathan said yesterday about that last play was if Kyler had thrown it and got the interception, it would have stopped the clock, and then they would have got the ball back, and then the 2-minute would have helped them. He kept it, the clock ran 2-minute. Is that something did you make him aware of that, or is that just kind of a product of the play where he didn't have a chance to throw it, so he had to?
It can be both. If you don't have a chance to throw it, it's not going to get thrown. You're going to take the sack. But there are definitely moments in 4-minute where you're telling a guy, hey, we're going to be aggressive to throw the ball, especially with a player like Kyler. I'm going to put the ball in his hands in critical moments and trust him to make the right decision. If a guy's open or you got to make the throw and it's there to end the game, make it. If it's not, there's going to be times where instead of taking a chance, I may want you to pull it down, try to make a guy miss or run with it, which you've seen him do, at a really high level. So it can go either way there.
I guess in that situation, holding the ball helped you guys.
Absolutely.
Instead of throwing it,
Absolutely.
stopping the clock.
Yes.
But is that something like you told them, like, hey, if this situation comes up, like, make sure you don't throw it because
4-minute mechanics would be the term. I'm gonna maybe not having that entire conversation with him, but there's things you talk about during the course of the week in the offseason. Say, hey, here's our mechanics in 4-minute. Here's what we're looking to do in 2-minute or backed up, and those come with certain parameters in terms of how we expect every position to do certain things. In the quarterback in 4-minute, there are definitely opportunities when he's got to know eat it over the incompletion is a big deal, and I need to communicate that to him during the game. I think he also does a great job of being aware. It's harder when the situation changes throughout a long drive. When you walk on the field kind of knowing where you're at, what the time is, what the situation is, a lot of that's kind of more at the forefront of your mind stepping on the field.
When it comes to Kyler's ability to get out of pressure and make some things happen, the flip side is maybe that last offensive play where he's going to try and make something happen and maybe you lose a few more yards than you would have if he. Do you just kind of live with that as a coach and say, like, this is kind of the game he plays, and every once in a while we might get stung a little bit by losing a few more yards because he can do all these other things?
Absolutely. Off the top of my head, I think back to last year, Buffalo game, spun out touchdown. Miami game, spun out. Like, that list is long. And sometimes spins out and it's an incompletion, or sometimes it's an explosive run. So you have to live with that. It's something that he does at such an elite level. I never want to take that away from his game.
When Chunk played at Trey McBride, he looked like he was gonna run, but he had his head up and was able to throw it. Is that a play that now he's starting to make because of his maturity and a couple years in the league?
It honestly probably has more to do with his elite talent level than it does with his maturity. They had pressure off the edge. It got home quick. He stepped up in the pocket, which was not clean, and saw Trey. Trey did a great job of sitting it down and putting the ball on him. It was a really impressive play by both those guys.
Last season, you guys use tight ends differently than a lot of teams around the league, and then week 1, you guys had 4 tight ends out there at once and kind of know what you have in Trey, but what is the true versatility behind him in that room that allows you to be able to have all 4 tight ends out there?
Trey's versatility, you're speaking?
But
The room and
Trey.
yeah, I mean, all 4 of those guys I have complete trust in. That's why you're going to see them in the game in critical situations, inside the 5, on 3rd down, could be in the middle of the field on 1st and 10. They do so many different things well. So we feel like we can pack it in and pound the ball, feel like we can spread it out and throw the ball. Really keeps us, allows us to run our entire offense and put a defense in a position of what are we defending, who do we need to put on the field, and how do we want to do that.
When you look at 5 sacks, I think a lot of people will look to the offensive line, but it seemed like very few of those actually came from the offensive line. How do you kind of feel about the offensive line overall in the passing game?
I thought they did a really nice job. I mean, to your point, one of them certainly was a coverage sack. We talked about the one, more on me than anything. 2 of them, I think Kyler scrambled and slid at the line of scrimmage, which, I guess that's technically a sack, but whatever. But I thought they did. I thought they competed. I thought that front was really good, and I thought those guys played at a really high level with high motor against a really talented group up front.
Does having, I know unblocked pressure is not necessarily the offensive line, it's the scheme and where guys are sliding, but does it concern you to have a number of those throughout a game, or does that kind of just happen?
No, not at all. Yeah, definitely just something that happens.
When the Saints are driving the ball at the end of the game the way that they were, are you constantly just thinking, if we get a stop here, this is what I'm going to want to call this situation? Or is there a part of you that just kind of standing there? Because Kyler was saying, like, I was watching, but I didn't really want to watch. Like, what are you thinking in those moments?
It changes as the time changes, but ultimately, you don't want to catch yourself watching as a coach. You always want to be thinking like, all right, if we get the ball here, if we get it there, if we get a stop there, are we in 4 minute? Are we in 2 minute? What does that look like? Where do we want to go? So that you're prepping the players for that opportunity mentally so they know what to expect. And then there certainly comes a time when there's about 13 seconds that we say, all right, at this point, we're not going back out on the field unless it's overtime. And then honestly, my mind shifts to that a little bit. Like, all right, hey, now we're in normal situation. We're in normal football. Where do we want to go? And then by the time you get to the 4th down, you're watching. You're just a fan with 2 seconds left, hoping your team wins the game.
Are you watching live or are you watching on big screen?
I've done both. I don't think either eases the stress. I had complete faith in them, but there's still a lot of adrenaline going there.
Let me ask you this question along those lines. Would you like it better if it was you guys on offense with 13 seconds left trying to score that touchdown, or when you have no control and you're just watching the defense and you don't have any part of it?
That's a great question and a really difficult one to answer. We're winning if the defense is on the field. We're losing if I'm on the field, so that's always a little scary. My anxiousness is much more when watching, because when you're coaching, I'm calling I'm not in the moment from that standpoint. I'm trying to make the best play call, get the right guy the ball, deal with the situation. It's harder as a fan, and that's I've always I watch my friends' other games. I'm honestly sometimes more stressed watching them than I am when I'm coaching, because you're in the moment.
We've talked about 3rd and long a couple times, and successes, and then of course the final play on offense. What was your overall evaluation of your guys' ability to convert there?
On the last play, or just 3rd down in general? We converted a 3rd 11 on the first touchdown drive. I think it was 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. The 3rd and 11 backed up were huge plays. So really excited about those. I think we were right around 50% for the game. There's certainly a couple we'd like to have back, whether play call or execution. But I thought overall it was pretty good.
JG talked about getting better this week. How nice is it to be in this position to know you need to improve and want to improve, but after a win?
It's always better to improve after a win. Everything is better after a win. That will always be true. And I think that mindset is true even if we feel like we played really well. You know, there's always going to be things like, hey, we had an elite game, we had a great game, we had a mediocre game. Okay, where can we get better? I think that has to be our mindset. Stick really true to our process about what we do during the week, how we prep for the next opponent, and say, here's a couple areas we want to get better. Here's things we need to continue to do at a high level and make sure that we're always improving.
This is a different team. Panthers are obviously a different team, but the fact that you faced them near the end of last season and now again near the beginning of this season, paired with the consistency you have on offense, does that provide any sort of leg up for you?
I don't necessarily know it's a leg up. They played us, we played them. There were different people playing in that game, even though there hasn't been a ton of turnover on the roster on offense. You know, if you look at I think we finished the game with 2 different tackles. I know James wasn't in the end of that game. You know, so you're looking at a very different roster, even to some extent from our standpoint. Certainly they've turned over the roster a little bit on defense, so we're going to see some new faces over there that we didn't play against a year ago. So I think from that standpoint, it's probably scheme-wise, there's some familiarity on both ends, but I think at the end of the day, it's a pretty new slate.
Did your brother have bragging rights then over the summer?
Unfortunately, he does. But we did Coach Rodgers. We got back-to-back brother fights here, so this is round 2 of the brother battle. So we're hoping to come out on top again.
Tyler was added to the injury report the day of the game. Is there how you find out, and then what do you do with the potential of having a less than 100% quarterback?
I think it's something, knowing Jacoby as the 2 and how he prepares, it's something I don't worry about. I can't control it, so we always have a plan. I mean, Kyler could go down the first play of the game, whether he's on the injury report or not. So we always got to be ready for the number 2 to step up and go out and execute at a high level. We know what that looks like and what we want it to look like, and it's something we're always prepping for during the week.
What time did you find out he was not feeling great?
Oh, God, I don't even know. That usually doesn't come across my board until you probably already saw it. No, I'm kidding.